You know, I've never been very popular, never at any point. I mean, this is not fake modesty, but true. I've always had somewhat of a following, but not spectacular. When I started working as a comedian, I never set out to create any kind of image at all. I mean, I just did those jokes that I thought were funny, and then would pick up the paper and read, he's a little man plagued by machines and the failure of human relations and stuff like, you know, but I don't even think of that. It's never a choice you make, a conscious choice. I mean, I just was out there trying to get laughs. It's only recently that I've been trying to think in terms of getting a little more content, using the humor to express a little more meaningful things, and most people have felt that that's been a good trend, though some have not. Some have felt that it's better just to get out there and make them laugh and not to bother with thinking about controlling the material to say something. What happens is you're shaving or walking down the street or something, and something just occurs to you seemingly at random. I don't know why it occurs, and I can never, you know, really trace it very accurately, but it's all very instinctive. I mean, there's very little analysis of the process, or very little thought about it. It's just that some things, it's all feeling and non-cerebral. You know, some stuff just feels funny and feels right, and some stuff doesn't. And my experience has always been that if I am faithful to how I feel about something, I'm right enough times for it to be successful. My experience has always been, both writing for the theater or television or films, and also for the New Yorker, that the toughest thing is getting started. Once you get the thing started properly, it kind of spins out of its own volition. The toughest writing is going from nothing to the first draft. That's really hard, because you never know if you have anything or not. You know, it may be an idea and you find you've written a quarter of a page and the whole idea is over. You know, so it's the anxiety is going from nothing to getting a first draft, no matter how sloppy the first draft is. And then I keep rewriting it till I get it perfect. But it's so much easier to rewrite it than it is to write it. You know, there's no comparison. You know, once you have 5 or 6 pages of prose in front of you, and just to sit and work on it and change sentences and develop things and cut things, and, you know, that's a cinch. But what's difficult is when you have an idea, you know, getting the first rush down on paper. Naturally, if you're writing stuff that's supposed to be amusing, I really anything, but certainly comedy, the more information you have, the better off you are. But it's also a trap, and I've done this myself, and I've tried to get away from it, but it's a tough thing. I find people that are making films, for instance, comic films, they cannibalize media. So you see films by various comic filmmakers, and they're about other films, they're satires on other films, and there's an enormous amount of reliance on not direct life experience, but media experience. I did that in Love and Death with Russian literature. The same thing happens in writing, that you have a tendency to rely not on your life observations, but on constantly gleaning things from other books that you've read. So you have to be very careful with your reading. You know, it's you have to, you know, really be severe with yourself about how much faith you put in it, and not let it be a substitute for real life experience. I always wanted to be a playwright. I mean, when I started being a comedy writer, and I wrote for television, thinking I would write for TV for some years, and then gradually evolve into a playwright, try and write some plays. And that was a long-range goal of mine. The first play that I wrote, Don't Drink the Water, was real terrible play, and it was just a group of 1 million gags all strung together. My second play, Play It Again, Sam, was better than that, but not much. When I first started writing prose, I wrote very much in the style of S.J. Perelman. It was almost impossible for any writer of comedy to have a comic vision that was unlike Perelman's, because he was such a dominating force. What I tried to do, in an effort to move away from Perelman, which I did very quickly, I mean, after the first 3 or 4 pieces up there, or maybe even soon after the first 2 pieces, I tried to simplify my style. And it was then started to move closer to Benchley, to that general style. Now, the difference as I see it is Perlman is hilariously funny in an extremely complex way. And Benchley is extremely simple, broad and simple and light. When I started getting into writing for the New Yorker more, I felt that what I wanted to do was be broader and try and write things that would make the reader laugh immediately. You know, that he wouldn't have to read a paragraph and get involved or anything, that from the first sentence or the second sentence on, it would be amusing and just go from there and try and keep it as light as I could. The first film I ever wrote in my life was a thing called What's New Pussycat, which I was paid to write, and I wrote it as funny as I could at the time. I'd never had any film experience whatsoever before that, and then I watched them make it into a film, and I didn't like at all what I saw. My feeling was, even at that time, I don't know how old I was, in my 20s, I thought that I could direct it more accurately for my own needs, you know, for my own aims with that particular script. And I felt that they overdid everything. They swallowed the thing up with money and overproduced it and were heavy-handed and didn't, you know. So I decided that I would never work in films again unless I could direct. And I immediately went back on that the next year when someone offered me a small role in Casino Royale. I thought that was a unredeemingly moronic enterprise from every point of view. I mean, I never saw the film, but I did see the dailies as they were shooting them. It was a handbook on how not to make a film. And consequently, I think they lost a lot of money with that movie, and very deservedly. Then I really was soured on films and decided that I just wouldn't work in it unless I could direct the film. And a few years later, they let me direct Take the Money and Run. And at that stage of my life, I was strictly surviving in terms of jokes. That was the one thing I knew I could write, were good jokes. And so Take the Money and Run is a compendium of jokes and sight gags. My problem with that film when I did it was that I didn't have enough jokes. I didn't know how many one needed for a film. And so there were dead spots in it. And I was in the editing room for a long time, constantly shifting stuff around, trying to you know, minimize, don't I? The dead spots. That was a real problem for me. And then in Bananas, I figured I would know what to do, and so I wrote a lot more jokes and filmed a lot more jokes, and there are much fewer dead spots in Bananas because of it. And when I got to Sleeper, then I started to develop more, you know, feel the need for more of a story, and I carried that on through Love and Death and into Annie Hall, where I started to sacrifice jokes a lot and go for story values. All along the line, there have been a lot of people who've had very different criticisms of my films. I mean, people will tell me that they hated Bananas and Take the Money and Run, but liked Annie Hall and Play It Again, Sam, because they're more story-oriented. Others will tell me that they hated those two films because they thought that they're just weak and uninteresting, and the real funny films are Sleeper and Bananas and Take the Money and Run. Some people will tell me they don't like Love and Death because it was depressing to them. Someone else will love that but not love. So I found that it was a mistake ever to try and learn anything from anyone and to simply do what you do, because there's an enormous audience out there and you'll never get two people to agree on anything, and it's meaningless to even think about it. You just go crazy. And this was a position I arrived at accidentally, just from people volunteering their likes and dislikes. So, you know, I just sort of do what appeals to me at the moment and hope that there's enough people that will like it. What's important to an artist, I think, is that he fails a certain amount of the times, because, you know, whenever you look at the great artists in any field, they have a enormous amount of failures as well as successes, whereas the non-artists get into that terrible trap where they are constantly not risking, because they want to have hits all the time. They want to have hit films or hit plays, or, you know, and you can't do that. You have to, what I would like to do is do some serious things, some experimental things, and fail with them. you know, I mean, I like to succeed with them, but be willing to fail with them is what I really mean, and not protect myself, you know, not go with my strength all the time, because then you never find out anything about yourself, you never learn anything, and you never grow.